Because if the SAVE Act becomes law, those 61 or 2 Congressional Black Caucus members we now have will be down to 30 within 2 years, and another half of that in the next 2 years. Why I know that? Because that's what happened the last time they passed laws like the SAVE Act. We lost the ability to cast our votes. They didn't call them picture ID. They called them things like how many bubbles are in a bar of soap, how many jelly beans are in that jar. They didn't say, as the secretary said earlier, you can't vote. They just made it near impossible for you to get registered to vote.
Jim Clyburn has been in Congress since 1993. He has seen every trick in the book. When a man with that resume looks into a camera and says half of Black political representation in America could be gone within 4 years, you stop and you listen. This wasn't a campaign speech. This was a National Action Network gathering in South Carolina. The room was full of pastors and organizers, people already inside the fight, and Clyburn chose that moment to say the quiet part very, very loud. The SAVE Act passed the House in February 2026. It is now sitting in the Senate. What it does is simple. To register to vote, you must show up in person with documentary proof of citizenship, a passport or a certified birth certificate. The Brennan Center found that more than 21 million Americans do not have ready access to those documents. People of color are disproportionately in that group. Nearly half of Black Americans under 30 do not have an ID showing their current name and address. And many older Black Americans born during the Jim Crow era were never issued birth certificates at all. This is not a glitch in the legislation. It is the point. What Clyburn just did there is important. He didn't say the SAVE Act is reminiscent of Jim Crow. He said it is.
They called them things like how many bubbles are in a bar of soap, how many jelly beans are in that jar. They didn't say, as the secretary said earlier, you can't vote. They just made it near impossible for you to get registered to vote. And that's what is taking place today. And I want to see the candidates focus on 2026. What are we going to do to hold on to that vote? What are we going to do to make health care accessible and affordable, housing accessible and affordable, education accessible and affordable, energy? I want to see our candidates who want to carry the mantle in 2028 come forward now. Lay out your proposals. Let us get attached to your platforms this year.
It's the same mechanism with a different name. The goal is identical, not to say you cannot vote, but to make registration close to impossible. Senator Mike Lee, one of the bill's lead sponsors, publicly stated that passing the SAVE Act would help Republicans in the 2026 midterms. He said the quiet part out loud. Senate Majority Leader Thune doubled down, warning that if it doesn't pass, it becomes a campaign issue in the fall. The architects of this bill are not hiding what it's for. And here's the number Clyburn keeps coming back to: 61. That is how many members of the Congressional Black Caucus currently serve. His projection, based on historical pattern, not speculation, is 30 within 2 years of this law passing, and 15 in the 2 years after that. That's a 3/4 collapse of Black congressional representation inside 1 decade. Not because Black voters stopped showing up, because the system was redesigned to stop counting them. Let that last line land. If we do not win these off-year elections this year, there ain't gonna be no election in 2028. That is not hyperbole from a man who talks in hyperbole. That is a 33-year congressman who has watched power.
And that's what is taking place today. And I want to see the candidates focus on 2026. What are we going to do to hold on to that vote? What are we going to do to make health care accessible and affordable, housing accessible, and affordable. Education, accessible and affordable. Energy. I want to see our candidates who want to carry the mantle in 2028 come forward now. Lay out your proposals. Let us get attached to your platforms this year so that we can have a successful off-year election. Because if we do not win these off-year elections this year, there ain't going to be no election in 2028.
Consolidate, voting maps redrawn, and rules rewritten, warning that the window for reversal is closing, and his frustration has a specific target: Democratic presidential aspirants who are already positioning for 2028 while refusing to engage the 2026 battlefield. His demand is that if you want the Black voter coalition that sent Joe Biden to the White House, the same coalition Clyburn himself helped organize, you have to earn it this year. Not in 2 years, on healthcare, on housing, on education, on energy costs. This comes exactly 1 month after Clyburn himself announced he is running for an 18th congressional term at age 85. Pelosi retired, Hoyer retired. Clyburn looked at the current moment and decided this is not the time to step back. He is still the longest-serving Democrat on the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. And if Democrats retake the House, he becomes its chairman. The Republicans trying to redraw his district right now, in coordination with the Trump White House, understand exactly how much that matters. Jim Clyburn's endorsement of Joe Biden didn't just win a primary. It demonstrated that one trusted voice, in the right moment, in the right state, can redirect the entire trajectory of a political party. South Carolina went first on the Democratic calendar in 2024 because Clyburn pushed.
You were critical in Joe Biden's election.
Thank you.
I will never forget that many of us were going different ways. And the morning after the debate, the Democratic debate in Charleston, I had had a minister's breakfast. That's where we first gave the award named after your wife. And all of the candidates came, Bernie Sanders, Liz Warren, everybody. And many were getting ready to endorse Bernie Sanders or somebody. You called me to the side, you were standing there with Joe Biden. And you said to me, Reverend, I want you to know I'm coming to your breakfast, but by noon, I'm going to endorse Joe. And Biden was standing there. I said, you are? He said, yeah. I said, okay. I said, well, I don't know if I'm going to endorse him, but I'll tell you one thing, I certainly won't go against him if you with him. And eventually I went with him. And that is why Joe Biden and I kind of got along. He said, Jim, because some of the preachers, including my mentor, went with Bernie. And what stopped me was the word of Jim Clyburn. And I remember 3 years later, the president, Joe Biden, was going to Texas to make a speech about changing the rules of the UN. And he invited me to go with him on Air Force One. And I got on Air Force One with Jim Clyburn. Clyburn said, you're glad I stopped you from that other endorsement, didn't you?
Well, you know,
but I say all that to say, whoever wins this nomination has got to come through South Carolina because the calendar changed. And whoever comes through South Carolina has to have the blessings of Jim Clyburn. What?
For it. Biden won the White House in large part because of what happened in that state. Now Clyburn is using that same credibility to ring an alarm, and the alarm is this: the infrastructure that made that moment possible, Black voter registration, Black representation in Congress, Black political power at the institutional level, is under coordinated attack. The SAVE Act is in the Senate. The Supreme Court is weighing a ruling that could eliminate at least 15 majority black congressional districts. And the South Carolina Freedom Caucus, in coordination with the Trump White House, is actively trying to redraw Clyburn's own district out of existence. None of this is accidental. None of this is coincidental. And Clyburn, who lived through the original literacy tests, who helped dismantle them, who built the political infrastructure that replaced them, is telling you these new tactics follow the exact same blueprint. He's 85, running for his 18th term and fighting harder than candidates half his age. The question he's putting to every Democrat watching is simple. Are you paying attention to 2026, or are you already daydreaming about 2028? Because if it's the latter, you may wake up to find there's nothing left to run for. If this conversation matters to you, share it, subscribe, drop your thoughts below. This fight is happening right now.